Well, we're live, and so while we're waiting to actually start the broadcast, we always like to start a little bit early so that we can welcome some of you that come in ahead of time, and we will start the show promptly at 7 o'clock. But like I said, it's always good to see who comes in. Oh, and don't mind me. The computer's over here, so I will be looking to see who's coming in. And so, hey, Bill, it's great to see you here. Have you here? And then Ruth, hello, Ruth. And
anybody else out there? These are
they're great people. Everyone's great. And Ruth is here. Ruth, hello. And tell us where you all are coming from, where you live, or as you come in. So it's great to see everyone here. And we have a little bit of a different format tonight. We're here actually in my work when we're trying out different places, and we have one place that we're going to set up to be our permanent spot for the show. But as you all know, Ken's going to be talking about his tools. And yeah, you are.
Uh-oh.
So you needed a space. Now, can everyone hear us okay? Just let us know if you can hear us and see us okay. Yep. And Ruth is from Minnesota. Yes.
We're going to get up there sometime and visit her and her husband, Danny.
Yeah.
We look forward to that. Could be as early as this fall, as long as the snow doesn't fly early up there.
Yeah. I think the snow flies a lot up there, doesn't it, Ruth?
I mentioned to a customer that I might be going up there in early October, and she's saying, "Ooh, that might be a little cold." I says, "Well, I'll probably be bringing the coldest weather gear that I have, and she probably will. The folks that we're visiting will probably still be in, t-shirts and lightweight jackets and stuff."
I don't like the cold at all, so I don't know. We might have to wait till spring. But I don't know. It might be summer for us, Ruth, and spring for you. I don't know.
And with the
oh my gosh.
With the warming, of the planet, who knows what the weather is going to be from month to month.
Yeah. We need to get back up and see Kim and Bill too. And again, they're not as cold as Minnesota, Ruth. They're not as cold as you, but they both of you guys really had a really kind of didn't have much of a spring, I guess is what I'm going to say. So, but we're glad to have you all here tonight. And yeah, Ruth said she had 40-degree temperature there the other day.
Yeah. We got lows this week of only 58 in the morning. We have a little bit of a cold snap for a couple of days. And then it's going to be back in the 70s and 90s during the day. Mm-hmm. The weekend.
Yep, been pretty. Had a lot of rain. Vacation a little, and we were actually up in Pennsylvania. We're at Hershey, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, everyone's phone kind of goes off. That alarm that they make, and we looked down. And they said, "Tornado warning. Take shelter now." So, what do you do in the middle of this amusement park? And you're like, of course, everybody runs to the same huge building. And lucky for Hershey World, because they really raked up with the money because everyone stayed in there and shopped and ate. So it was fun anyway. We got to go back out in a little while, but it's scary. Yes, Kim said we would love to have you come up. I know, we saw the photos out there the other day, Kim. Yesterday I think it was, of a year ago, and then we were up there. And so I can't believe it's been a year. But we'd love to have all y'all down here too. So hey, Kim, by the way. And Jan, hey Jan, how you doing tonight? It's good to have you here too. And
where's Jan from?
I know. We love to travel. We might come see you too, Jan.
Yeah.
So anyway.
We're trying to find all these business trip destinations so we can come see how you do work and maybe share some tips personally with you.
I don't know. Jan's the Pinterest queen. Oh. So we'll talk shop and write it off as business because she knows she is the Pinterest queen of all time. So anyway, okay. Yeah, it is actually, oh, she's in Illinois. Oh, okay. Always welcome. Yeah, see? We'll just make our rounds.
Right.
The caravan going. So, anyway, well, we are actually at the top of the hour. So, let's go ahead and get started because you can see the table here. And I thought Ken had a few things to tell you tonight, but it looks like he has a lot to share. So let's get it officially started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with Kenny V and
Sandra V Show. Now, we are here on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we've come here to bring you some techniques and hopefully some inspiration that will make your working life easier. And so as you come in, please say hello and tell us where you are from. It's always great to see, like we've already been doing, to see where everyone's coming from. Anyway, and we'd like to ask everyone to please hit that share button so others can join us as well. And I know some of you have already shared, and we thank you for that. As you guys can already tell, Ken has kind of decided that this is his arena tonight. So I'll let him tell a little bit what he's going to be talking about tonight.
I don't know if I decided or if it was decided for me, but I'm happy to help or participate in my part. So anyways, I'm going to share some tools that makes my work life easier. And I truly believe the right tools that takes some fear out of the installation, knowing what your options might be, either in your primary bag or you may have in your installation vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true because, so many times when I know for me, if I thought that I had to go do an installation, if I didn't think I had the right tools, or even not even installation, but even in my workroom, if I felt like I didn't have the right tools or gadgets or whatever to complete the task, I think that would make me nervous. And I know, you gave the class at the CWC, and it was about the fundamentals of a worry-free installation. And I think just set yourself up helps you, like you said, get rid of that fear that we have of completing tasks. So, and before he gets started, I just want to remind everyone that Ken will be answering questions every week, installation questions. And so feel free to post the questions right here on Live with Sandra V. He does have a Facebook page called Install What's New, and you can post them on there as well. And if we get a lot of questions, he'll just pull them out of a hat or something and answer them as we go. So that's it. I'm out of here. The floor is yours.
Good. So anyways, one of the things that happened this past week was Sandra was working on some Roman shades. So my part of that process is to go get some weight bars for her and then, of course, cut them to the proper size. So I went to Home Depot. That's my big box store of choice. And we got this 1.5 inch flat aluminum bar. And I'm going to show you how to cut that down to size. It's a little pricey, but it works great. And that's typically what you would find in the bottom of Roman shades or roller shades when you purchase them from the manufacturer or fabricator. So anyways, I got some bolt cutters. And these are probably also Home Depot because of the orange. But anyways, these work out great. Not only for cutting the flat bar, but also sometimes Sandra wants to use the threaded rod, and it will work equally as well on cutting that. So, of course, you got to measure and mark it to length, whatever desired length is. And then I normally would just set it on, since I'm here at the table, just set one part on the table, and then kind of use my knee to bring the close. Let's close it up a little bit, so it kind of grabs it. All right, so once you get it close, then make sure you line it up on your line. And then once you squeeze a little bit more, make sure your line is square to the cutter. And then you just got to squeeze down on it. And of course, I'm going to make it look easy because I do this type of stuff all the time. some of the other folks may have struggled a little bit. But anyways, you make that heavy indentation in there, and then you just wiggle it around a couple times. It falls right off. Again, these are just regular bolt cutters, probably $20 or less at Home Depot, and those are the two things that I use them to cut them on. I don't go around clipping locks off of containers or anything like that.
Why not?
Well, because I like the freedom of coming home to see your pretty small there.
Oh, okay. Does anybody else use those bars for their rowing shades?
Does anybody else use these bars? I don't know. Maybe they'll respond with a question or a comment. Or if you use something different, let us know, because maybe we could use something different. But while we're in the cutting segment, this is another device that I use when I have metal rods that I need cut on site. And I got this little guy recently. It's probably been out there for a long time, but I'm not an early adopter, we'll say. And this is a pole cutter. It goes out to 42 millimeters, which I'm not sure what the conversion is, but it's quite large. It's a good at least 1.5 inches, it looks like. And of course, you would mark your rod to the desired length. And it looks like I've lost my blue tape. Not sure where that ended up at. So let me get another piece. And this is a key part of my key tool also, is having the blue tape ready and to mark things such as the measurement that I want the desired length to be. So anyways, you got this sharp cutter right here, and then this is rollers on this side. And so you line that up at the desired location. Make sure you remember what side of the tape you're operating from. And you just get it on there around the pipe, and then you tighten it up till it starts to grab a little bit. And then I'm going to take that tape off because I don't want to sacrifice it just for that one little cut. Because if somebody asks, oh, can I get a piece of that tape? I said, it's $6 an inch. How many inches you want? I got more rolls out in the truck. And, they're probably thinking, what? Because the whole roll probably only costs $3.90. But I do buy good blue tape. I don't buy the cheap stuff, because you get what you pay for, exactly. Anyways, so you see that there's probably, you can't see, but there's a line starting to form right there, and it's probably just cutting through the plastic. Well, as you turn the pipe, you also got to turn the knob here to keep it tight so that it stays on that same line. And also, you just have to keep doing this and periodically tighten it up. Now, when you start getting close, you want to make sure that you're going to be on some sort of soft surface. You don't want this pipe to be dropping and hitting the hardwood floor, because it's going to be the Brazilian cherry hardwood floor that's imported from far away and priceless for it. So make sure that you have a pad down there to cushion the flow of the fall, or if you have to have assistant, they will hold that other part of the pipe. So we're just going to work through this real quick.
And Jan said she loves those bars, so she uses these bars for her Roman shade.
What do you use to cut it, Jan? I'm sorry, I'm looking at Sandra. She's got the camera or the computer over there. So there it goes. So I was lucky enough to be in the workroom where we have carpet as well as a table, so I didn't have to worry about gouging the fancy hardwood floor. But anyways, you see how that come off nice and clean? There's normally no burrs on the outside to get caught on your fingers and get that metal in there. But sometimes if you're putting a finial plug in there, now there might be a little bit. And they do have this little that's attached to it, that slides up. And so you stick that in the middle, just a sharp blade, and you can, you may not be on the camera, but I can see that it's cutting those little burrs off. And of course, you don't want that to fall into the person's carpet, so the dogs, or they can get it in the bottom of the foot, or little kids. So make sure you dispose of that properly. But traditionally, because it doesn't create any debris or mess, I will do this inside somebody's home, but like I mentioned, over the a blanket, like a moving pad or something like that. So anyways.
Jan said she uses a saw, and Ruth also said she loves those pole cutters, and I think she's talking about the one that you're using.
Yeah. Now, I do carry a chop saw that has an abrasive bit on it already preloaded. I have two chop saws actually. I probably need to get three if people continue who want me to cut the acrylic rods, which I'm not honestly a big fan of because you got to put the brackets pretty close together. Um, but anyways, I do have a chop saw that has an abrasive bit on it, and that abrasive bit is what's used to cut the metal. So I do have that if I need to cut through even something like solid steel, because this would only cut a hollow tube, hollow metal tube, not something solid steel, which I have cut in the past with the abrasive saw. Mm-hmm. But that's nice to know. But this is a little bit easier. You don't have to get the extension cord out and find an outlet on the front of people's house or run it from inside the house through the door and all that mess. So they're not cheap, but I've already found great value in that pole cutter.
And what's just a pole cutter?
That's all it is.
Is it hard to turn? I mean, you have to put a lot of pressure on it?
No, if you put less pressure, then that means you just got to rotate it a lot more. But you need to keep enough pressure on it so it just stays on your line. And I tighten it up pretty good, and then I just torque it around there and stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you need to, you can adjust the pressure to whatever is comfortable for your length.
Ruth wants to know, what do you use to cut the acrylic rods with?
Well, I had to a special cutting blade for plastics, and I hope you are going to do several of them. I hope I get to do several of them because that blade cost me $193, if I recall. And I ended up getting it offline. And if anybody's interested, I could find that location of where I got it. I believe it was from someplace in Washington State, Seattle area. But I don't know the name off the top of my head. I purchased it probably about 10 months ago. And I've only used it about 3 times, actually. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of that, but sometimes people don't ask me my opinion on stuff. I just got to do it.
Why don't you tell the problems that you've encountered with the acrylic rods?
Well, the problem, it's not the cutting to size or anything. It's just that the acrylic rod, it looks great, transparent, so to speak. So it looks like things are just suspended in animation, but obviously you can see the rod up there. But the problem is even with lightweight panels, the rod bends. So it just doesn't make sense unless you're going to have brackets every 12 to 18 inches or 2 foot. And that is not a desirable look if you have a whole series of brackets going across the top of a window, just to hold the rod straight. So I'm not a big fan, but don't ask my opinion. I'm just there to complete the job. But I do, if somebody does ask, I do let them know that my experience tells me that they need to be prepared to have additional brackets, and to just know that that's my experience, that you need a lot of brackets to keep the rod from bending or be noticeably bending in just a short distance. Of course, it all depends on the weight of the drapery. It maybe work fine if you just have shears going across there. But if everybody seems to be wanting to use linen and lined linen, and that just to me spells a good amount of weight and maybe too much for acrylic rod. That might be something better suited for a metal rod or a wood rod. Probably metal. You can you probably need to, unless you're going to put brackets every 4 foot or less. You probably need to have the 2 1/4 inch wood rod instead of a 1 3/8. And by using the smaller metal, it adds, obviously it's a lot more sturdy for those longer spans with minimal amount of brackets and stuff.
We've had a couple more people join us. Just welcome everybody. I don't know, and ask them to type in where they're from. And
well, I'm glad that people are showing up, and just let us know where you're from out there, so we can ask questions if it's an area that we've had experience on at visiting, or installations perhaps, as we travel. I've been to Alabama and New Hampshire, and generally go to South Carolina pretty regularly, as well as all over North Carolina. Well, another tool that I use pretty regularly, especially with draperies, is called a pin setter. And this is available through Rowley, just like the pole cutter was. And probably only through Rowley. I'm not sure. Uses not something you're going to find in Joann's, perhaps, or certainly not going to be in Home Depot or that. It's more of a specialty item for a trade. And so that's where Rowley is a valuable source of that. But you put a whole strip of pins in there. I don't load them by hand unless I end up with a bunch of them in my box. And I do sometimes do that when I have to pull them back off. But generally it's because somebody else, they asked for the drapery to be pinned. And when they asked for it to be pinned, they didn't bother to determine what the proper pin setting was based on the hardware that we're going to be using. So a lot of times, if they're the proper I'll peel them off, stick them on my box. Sometimes you just need one pin, for a return or something like that. And then if I get a large amount of them, I'll take the time to load them onto the gun sleeve individually. But if you do that, you got to make sure that they're all closed up nice and tight like that. Because when you pull them out of the drapery, sometimes there'll be a gap like that. And you can't put them on the gun like that because the profile won't fit because it has awful tight tolerances in the inside of the plastic here. So get that one ready for next time if I need to use it in the gun.
Can you show how to load those things?
What's that?
Can you show how to load those things?
Well, I'm not going to show you how to load this because this is pretty fully loaded. But if somebody doesn't have that experience, maybe that's a good idea for another show. And I'll come prepared. I actually have another one that I can use to just empty out because it's spring loaded. So as soon as you release this little guy here, all those pins are just going to fall all over the place, out this way. And then Sandra, she's not much of a help loading the gun up, so that would be something that Ken does while he's watching TV because you got to be productive. So anyways, let me show you how that works.
We have Pet Wagner from Traverse City. Is it Michigan?
Yeah, that's Michigan.
Ken's from Michigan.
Yeah, I've been up there, but a long time ago. I'd love to go back up there because I'm sure it's even more beautiful now. This time of year, it's probably nice up there, certainly in the fall as well.
Carlette Cormier from Savannah.
Hey, Carlette, how you doing? So anyways, this drapery here.
We have one more person, too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we have Sherry Johnson from Kentucky.
Welcome, Sherry. Nice to see you're out there as well. This is a drapery panel that Sandra just got that she's going to be working on. So I'm not sure that these pins are in the proper spot because you probably got to take the header out and replete and all that stuff. So I normally use the pin on like wood poles and rings at 1/4 of an inch. And the reason I do that is because that eyelet extends below the large wood ring, maybe a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. But I like the panels to be resting down here underneath the wood ring. I don't like them to be up here around the wood ring. They hang nicer, and that's the way I roll, or the way I pin anyways. So the pinner has this little lip right here, and it has a gauge on it. And that gauge will allow you to pin it at different depths. And it just moves. It's just friction down there. And you would go off this top part here is where the white marker is at, and that is dictated by the letter or the numbers over here off to the side. So I come back down here to the 1/4 inch, which is where I'm at normally, and the pinner, and then it exposes the pin. So be careful because it will poke you, and you don't want to be bleeding. You expose the pin, you set the little gauge at the top of the panel, and then you get it right there in the middle of that pleat, so you don't have what they call a shiner. And it's kind of a rocking motion. You just roll it in there, and you can see that that's down about exactly 1/4 of an inch. Now, that shiner I was telling you about, here, let me put one in. It's going to be hard for me because I normally don't do this where they're intentionally a shiner. But I see I couldn't even do it. So let me try it again.
You mean you couldn't get a shiner?
I couldn't get one even if I tried. Oh, and I can't hear. This must be Miracle Fabric. It's not going to lie. It's shiner-proof fabric, apparently. So let me try a little harder. Okay, there we go. Finally got one. So shiner is when the pin is exposed on the other side, the face fabric, the front of the fabric. And of course, that doesn't look nice. Even if it's over here along the edge, you certainly don't want that. So you just have to back it back out. And if you can still see the indentation where the hole was started, then you can just reinsert it. And if you do one or two of those, you'll realize the value of the pinner, because your hands will be hurting at just after a half dozen or a dozen of these little guys and stuff. And everybody seems to have wide panels, and some of the fabric is not as easy to get through, like this particular one was here.
Now, is that something? Would you say that the installer is usually responsible for pinning the panels, or is that something that you expect the workroom to do?
Well, that's a service I provide, but I'm not saying that everybody provides that. I have heard stories where so-called installers, probably more classified as handymen, show up and they don't even have angle irons. They don't. Lucky if they have screws, and if they're all the same color, and they certainly wouldn't have specialty tools like a drapery pinner. So you have to maybe qualify your installer or handyman, just like you would qualify your customer or your workroom position is in the industry. But typically, if somebody asks me, I tell them I would rather pin for a couple reasons, because once I'm out there on site at the installation site, I'll know what the actual hardware is and where the drapery pins need to be. And does anybody have any questions on how a drapery pinner works, or have any experience with the drapery pinner?
I don't see any questions, but did I tell you Deborah Cronin from New York is here?
No, you didn't. Hi, Deborah.
And then also Diana Hershey from Lancaster. Oh, you're in Lancaster, Diana? Oh,
hey, we were right there just a week ago.
There. I didn't know you were in Lancaster. So, and then also I think Heidi out there.
Hi, Heidi.
And then Carlette said she loves using the pinner.
Yeah. She sounds like a wise lady, because it sounds like she has some experience and make her hands hurt if she has to do them by hand.
Yep.
So it's a valuable tool. I don't know what the going price is now. I hadn't purchased one recently, but I can't imagine it's probably in the $25 range. And honestly, hopefully Rowley's not listening, but I'd pay $250 for it, just because of it's that valuable. For the working smoothly and less injuries in my hands down the road, probably will help offset the arthritis and things that will creep up on everybody.
Okay. And Ruth said, she said, Ken, you're a good installer to set those pins. And she said she has a hard time working with the pinner.
Well, I get that a lot, and it just like anything, it's just a matter of having the experience and maybe a little bit of a lesson at the beginning. But I'm happy to share that some more tips or use of the drapery pinner, such as loading the strips onto it. Now, I buy my strips already on or my pins are already on a strip, instead of buying by bulk. You can buy them by bulk, but they're a lot cheaper. But there's a reason why they're a lot cheaper, because you got to manually load them onto a little cartridge in there inside the pinner.
Mm-hmm. And Donna Cash says she always sets the pins in her workroom, and she loves her pinner also.
Yeah, it's there's nothing saying that the pins can't be set in the workroom or the fabricator, as long as they know what the hardware is going to be. Because I'm happy to do it. I do. That is a service that I charge for. I charge per the width, obviously, because it takes time, And then, of course, you have the pins that need to be purchased and replaced. But I'm happy to do it. Not necessarily because it's not a big money maker, but it's just a service that I provide, and then also allows me to make sure they're at the right depth. And sometimes you got to make a little bit of adjustment in the pins with the pinch pleated panels or that type of pleat.
Mm-hmm. And Diana said she wished she would know we were in Lancaster. Me too. We were there. So
yeah, but nice to know. So whoever the travel coordinator was on our plan failed to determine whether Sunday was a good day to travel to Lancaster and the surrounding communities, because there was absolutely nothing open to go shopping in, and but we did get to see the the horse and buggies and that type of thing on the side of the roads. But it was actually probably a good thing, because that maybe saved me a little bit of money.
We did go to Turkey Hill, though.
Yeah, we did make it to Turkey Hill for the Turkey Hill experience. And I'm a big cow lover, so I had a great time there.
Jen Newt said yes, it was worth the money for a pinner. And then Peg Wagner said that a pinner setter is $25.75 at Rowley.
There you go. I was pretty close.
Thank you for that.
So, do we have any other questions or comments?
Nothing right now.
Okay. So moving along, what these little combination squares are here, how I use those in my installation process. I found my blue tape. I was practicing earlier. So anyways, I use these combination squares to help me determine the where the mount plate goes to the wall in relation to the top of the drapery panel. So again, like I mentioned, I want the top of the panel to be below the wood ring in this situation, and right near the eyelet. So if you see how that goes across there, right now I'm focused on where the top of the panel is going to be at, not necessarily where the mount plate's at.
Turn it toward the camera.
That's the next step.
Sorry, bring it in a little bit more. Can you see that?
So anyways, you see I have the blue tape already positioned there, but otherwise you would just have to apply the blue tape. And I normally work off the top part of the bar there. So that's the first step. And then the next step would be, now you can see where the mounting plate is at. Make sure that it's fully engaged to the screws there. And then you use your professional 6-inch ruler. And this is one of my favorite tools. And you can see that it is to the bottom of that tape, approximately or right at 1 inch and 3/16. They kind of vary a little bit, even though they mass produce them, but they're generally in the 1 1/8 inch range. My experience tells me with the 2 1/4 inch. So that's how I would use that, and that works great for the traditional bracket. But what if you got one of these large projection brackets? Well, they happen to make the combination squares in a larger size as well. This particular one goes out to a full 12 inches, and this one is about 6 inches long. So that's how I use those, and I primarily keep this in my bag that I could bring in the house just about every time, and then because I don't use a lot of those, but I have this available in my vehicle if necessary. And if you use the, oh, somebody got a comment?
Kim said, I should give Ken a pink 6-inch ruler.
Tell her I'm happy with my Installer Rules ruler. It has my own information on it.
I do have a pink one over there.
Oh, maybe the pink ones will show up better on camera, and that's probably why you chose pink. I'm not a camera person, so I can appreciate the fact why you did that. If you have the 2 1/4 inch European bracket, you can see how the throat of that extends down low. And so in order to get to the bottom of that mounting plate, my experience with my combination square, it happens to be the perfect size to get to the bottom of the mounting plate and also to where the top of the panel is going to be. So in that situation, what I do is I just measure the length that I have on this little arm here, and I got 2 3/8 of an inch. So if your top of the panel is 100 inches, and you need to add that 2 3/8 to get to the bottom of the mounting plate, and then add or subtract what you want to do at the floor level. Oh, here's that pink 6-inch ruler that might show up better for the camera. But that's how I use the combination squares with the different hardwares. And that might be something that we can expand to in a couple of later series as far as like metal hardwares, because sometimes they're kind of way below the ring and the mounting part. All right.
So you never lose a pink one. Kim said you're no fun.
I hold on to this guy sometimes even with my teeth, so I don't lose that either. So, as I mentioned, blue tape is invaluable. I use it to mark. I not only hang draperies, blinds, and shades and shutters, but also hang a lot of art. And this is the best way to mark on the wall instead of using pencil, making big crosshairs, which I've seen when I go around to replace the piece of art with another piece of art. Hopefully, it's larger, because sometimes the crosshairs on the wall that somebody else, the previous hanger, whether it's a homeowner or so-called professional installer, may have used. Hope it's large. The new piece is large enough to cover those marks, because even if I try to erase them, it's not going to come off cleanly. So blue tape is invaluable as well. Another thing that I like to use for my tape measure is what they call a snap click, and I like the 25-foot Fat Max ones, and it clips right onto your belt. I happen to have gotten away from wearing the big holster and a belt because I'm concerned about my hips and all the extra weight on me, and so normally I have a lot of things dangling off my ladder that I use. But sometimes you got to go up, 2 stories, and you need to have things clipped to you, or maybe you're just going in to measure, so it doesn't make sense to bring a big ladder in, or you still need to have it available. But anyways, this guy here will also, I have a metal section on my ladder, and it will clip to the ladder as well. So sometimes I'll have it clipped to the ladder, and I'll have this on my belt, and operate that way. But it's got 2 heavy-duty magnets in there, and then it's, of course, a piece of metal. And so you got to hear that full engagement. And you'll get used to that click and stuff, but it is on there. You really got to fight for it. And it just, the way it goes is it just clips onto the little belt clip that's already on the tape measure. And there's a slot there. And so you just line it up and slide it on there. Some people will try to get it off your belt, say, oh, let me borrow your tape measure, and you got your drill or whatever, and they'll pull the thing off the little clip thing. And so that's not the way you operate that. So, but anyways, that's what that is. I just happened to pick myself up another one. That's why it was still in the package.
And what's it called?
It's called a quick snap.
And where'd you get it?
Of course, I got it at Home Depot. And I forget how much it was. I think it was probably $12 or $15 at the most. I think it was closer to $10 actually. Now that I recall.
Now that might even work well. Well, maybe not. I was trying to say for the workroom, but maybe not, because we don't walk around. Well, some people might walk around with their apron around their waist. I have the full apron, so that wouldn't work for me.
But it could, depending on if you have any metal surfaces in your workroom, because you could just clip it to the, like maybe we could add the metal surfaces to the end of your table to keep it off your table so it doesn't interrupt your fabric, and it just sticks underneath the table.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because you can buy those little metal strips, or just a piece of metal. Like we bought these aluminum bars, we can buy metal bars, and all we can do is drill a couple holes and put a couple screws through it, and attach those little metal points so that she can put her tape measures at the different corners of the table, or on shelves. Well, of course, you can't see it because of the camera, but we have a metal shelf over here behind us, so we can attach it to there. It might be easier than getting buried underneath the fabric if it's laid on a table or in your set down someplace else, because any flat surface seems to be a covering surface, and you don't want your tape measure to get lost. Because I'm sure workrooms as well as installers, it's a vital tool, for your daily operation. While we're in the magnet zone, if you have any questions about tape measures, this is mine of choice. I've been using the Fat Max one for probably shortly after I got into the business. And this one here actually is a specialty one. And you don't see these very often, but this one actually has a magnet on the end of it. So I can go fishing. If I drop my screw on the floor or whatever, for some reason it slips out of my finger, I can send my tape measure down to retrieve it off the floor instead of me going down and getting extra exercise going up and down the ladder to get the screw. Now, it actually has a pretty significant holding power. I used it when I was doing two-story operation, and I was able to drag a bracket, a metal bracket, from the floor all the way up to me. But of course, when you're doing something like that, you got to make sure you got a good, steady contact, because you don't want that bracket to be falling onto somebody's floor. And a lot of times when I do the two-story stuff, because I'm always concerned about if something falls, I will put that, again, like a moving blanket down on the floor, just in case a screw falls, or maybe a bracket if I'm trying to retrieve it up. But normally I'm not that lazy, but sometimes, oh man, I just came up and I forgot that bracket. So let's see if I can fish it and bring it up instead of going back down after it.
And don't you count your screws when you go into home?
I do count my screws for a couple reasons. One, not that I'm cheap, but I don't want to leave any behind. If one falls, I want to make sure that I go retrieve it, whether with my magnet or after the fact. For a couple reasons, I don't want somebody to step on it, especially if it's on hardwood floor. That's going to hurt the floor as well as the bottom of their foot. And then two, little kids, you don't know what they're going to find underneath the corner of the sofa, and you certainly don't want them finding a screw that was left behind, as well as pets. So I always do count them out, and then if I happen to get to the last bracket, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm missing a screw, then that reminds me that, oh, maybe one fell earlier and maybe rolled up underneath the sofa, and I didn't see it when I got down off the ladder. And
any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
And also, if anybody has come in, there's a couple more people who've come in. Let us know who you are and where you're from.
Right. So, anyways, what?
So you're friendly, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm about business.
Oh.
I'm about getting the information out there. You're the cheerleader. So, anyways, when you're getting ready to purchase your next tape measure, and sometimes it's not a matter of the numbers wearing off or anything like that, but sometimes these little ends will loosen up, and if you're measuring and you need to be precise measurement, then that may be time to think about getting a new tape measure. And if I'm buying a new tape measure, I'm going to be on the lookout for the magnet one. And I just looked the other day when I purchased that quick stamp, and I did not see any on the shelf. So you have to shop around, and so occasionally I'll spend a little extra time when I go into Home Depot to look and see if they have one, because even though I might not need one right now, they might not be available when I do need one. But I also have a couple of tape measures. I don't just have one. I have one that I use every day, but I have other ones stored in the vehicle, and different vehicles actually, in case somebody decides to borrow it and I got to go to the next job to continue. But here's a ratchet with a little 1/4 inch socket on it, and so that's got a little bit of weight, and you can see that that magnet doesn't have no problem at all picking that up. And see, I'm shaking it and it's still got a good hold onto it. So it's pretty strong. So that's certainly something to think about, and it's a valuable tool for me. While we're in the magnet world, this is a wrist magnet, And I always use that a lot of times, especially if I'm going up two-story. I have a couple of them. I'll put one on each wrist because I try to keep things out of my mouth, like screws, because you never know where they've been. If they've fallen on the floor, it might be dog hair or something attached to them, and that doesn't taste that great. So, but these little guys here work great. That's like a little wrench. Like I said, primarily I use it to put screws onto it. So that works out nicely, and that's also available at Rowley. I know some of the ladies in the workroom probably have it for pins, because that's how they come, and they probably sell it to both installers as well as workroom. In different sections of the magazine or the catalog. Does anybody got any questions on magnets?
Well, does anybody have any questions, or do they do they use any of these tools but use them for a different reason?
Right. And I got one more magnet trick for you. Then we'll get off the magnets. This is just a magnet that I dug out of an old shutter, and it happened to be a Norman shutter because they have embedded magnets instead of the external mounted ones. And this is what I use to find studs in the wall. And what it does, I don't even have a screw right here actually, but it finds the screw head that attaches the sheetrock to the stud. And you can see how quickly that grabbed hold of that little piece of metal washer. Oh, it works equally as well on the wall. And the reason I like it being on a cord instead of I seen a little YouTube video, somebody stuck it in the end of a wood branch or something like that. Well, that there you got to drag all the way across the wall, and it may be marking the wall up. Well, this here is fully exposed, and you just kind of swing it across once you figure out where that first one's at, or while you're trying to find that first one, and it will grab hold of that wall, that screw in the wall. Then, instead of you trying to get exactly in the line, this gives you a little bit more flexibility. So I use that quite a bit as far as finding the stud, or find out what's in the wall. Not necessarily a stud, but to see if there's something. If you feel something when you do that pre-drill and you find something in the wall and you're not sure what it is, then that will help you determine whether it's a piece of wood going down there or if there's something else that you need to be concerned about. And since I was using these little washers, I recently took down some blinds, just regular 2-inch blinds, and inside the window there was a little bit of a gap where the back screw was going to go through the blind bracket. And so somebody was clever enough to put a series of washers and create a little spacer. And of course, you can tailor them to whatever size you want. That seems like an awful lot of work to me, where I would just I have these other little spacers that I purchased, and you can get these are like 3/8 of an inch, and that probably would have fit in there nicely in that space. Actually, it looks like it's almost exactly the same size. And these come in like hundreds or whatever, when they're pretty inexpensive.
What are they for?
Just a spacer block, to make sure that the bracket is level, whatever the bracket is. But I use that little, but that happens to be a 3/8 of an inch, but I got different size ones. Sometimes I use them just so that if I'm moving, I want the bracket to be positioned in the same place. Excuse me, whether it's the same projection outside the window or inside the window. Sometimes I just use a different size bracket, spacer blocks and stuff. So I think that is it for the magnets right now. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. Another thing that I use, and Rowley seems to be my go-to as well as Home Depot, when I'm measuring for people, including my wife, sometimes we get a bay window scenario, and we got to know what that angle is. Well, this is a heavy-duty protractor, and you can see it's adjustable to whatever the angle of the wall might be. And this works out great. If it's a traditional 135-inch degree bay, then if you follow that, that's 135 there on the angle. If you follow it across here, it tells you where to go, what the angle is on your miter saw, which happens to be 22.5. So that has that corresponding, just goes the opposite direction. It has another little red tick over here, that helps you line that up and get that more precise cut and angle. So that works out great for getting the angle of the wall. And on the dust boards, when you're cutting those dust boards and you cut that angle, a lot of times it'll have that hard point on the back corner there. I will cut that little tip off about good quarter of an inch or 3/8 of an inch. And what that does is a lot of times that sheetrock is they put that sheetrock tape in there, and it doesn't necessarily have that hard angle. It's more rounded, and that will allow you that little bit of ease in order to get that board squared back and all the way up against the wall, and hopefully help keep that angle perfect, like we want to provide to the customers and stuff. And let's see what else we can work on here.
Did you get asked to attach a dust ruffle?
Actually, I did just yesterday. Picked up a bunch of stuff, met one designer at one place and measured. In fact, we used the protractor because it had a bay window in the master bedroom. And then I picked up some other stuff for 2 other jobs I was going to for her, but she wasn't going to accompany me on. She's got faith in me. She's one of actually my oldest customers. I've been working with her for about 11 or 12 years actually, and she seems to be happy with what I can do. And she has the confidence that she doesn't need to show up on every job. I just pick the stuff up for her. In this case, she was in town, and I got the stuff from her. So I know that sooner got all the stuff and was heading in the opposite direction she was heading to the next customer, and she calls and says, do you do bedding? And I says, yeah, sure. She says, you install a dust ruffle? I says, yeah, I can do that. She says, how would you attach it if it was on one of those Tempur-Pedic beds that has like hard plastic box? And I says to her, actually, I was wanting to see what she was thinking. And I said, well, I don't know how you were thinking it was going to be attached. And she was thinking like either some small wood tacks or Velcro. And I told her that I think that the double-sided sticky back Velcro would be my preferred method. And so I ended up doing that. But another way to do it is with and the way you got to get that mattress up, especially those Tempur-Pedic ones, because that's like, could be 14 inches thick, and it is like just a solid piece of latex foam. But luckily, I am physical, so I'm able to get it up enough where I can slide a pillow underneath just to create a couple inches of space over here on the edge where I'm working on the band for that type of dust ruffle. Now, if you have a full deck, then that whole mattress has got to come off, and you may need the assistance of another person or two to get those guys off there. And of course, that depends on what kind of bed frame they have, how much of an obstacle that would be to get it off there. But anyways, I use a pillow. I shove a couple of good sized pillows up underneath the area that I'm working on, whether it's a side or a foot or the other side, and that seems to work well for me.
How's everybody else do it? Ask out there.
Because if you don't do that, if you say, well, I'm just slide it off to the side, well, when you slide it back over, that might push the edge of the dust ruffle off, or it may tear however you had it attached or here, whether it's double-sided tape, or maybe you use a tag gun, or maybe use those little twist pins. So let us know if what technique you guys use to attach dust ruffles to different types of box springs. Now, the traditional inner spring box spring, you can use a tag gun, and that's the way I would use that. I used to use those little twist screws, but those little twist screws, sometimes the little metal part of the twist screw would twist inside the little plastic thing that you are twisting, so that doesn't work well. Or they would get bent because it might happen to be my luck lined up with the piece of metal inside the under the fabric of the box spring. So the tag gun, I found works great for the fabric covered box springs, and you just have to remember to allow whatever the gap is on your tags. Like these are 3/8 of an inch, so you got to pull it up a little bit more, tag it, because it's going to release and relax back down, because you don't want to have to constantly re-tagging it. And the nice thing about that is too is you just give it a little jerk and you can come off. You can take it out, or just get a little snippers and you can snip it back off and make adjustment.
Carlette said that she uses the little twist pins if it's a regular buck spring and Velcro like you did on the solid buck spring.
Carlette, you might want to try that tag gun next time and see how your experience is with that. Honestly, I like using that a lot better than those twist pins. At least last batch of twist pins I got, I ended up throwing more away than I was able to use. So something to consider.
And Ruth said, good advice on how to install a bed skirt.
Thank you. Another thing that I learned from somebody was if you have to train panels, certain fabrics, when you get them hung, they want to flare out, or they might just be stiff, or maybe the way they were folded, they weren't fan folded, they were just folded flat. And some people want to have the nice little round curves, pleats coming all the way down. So in order to train those, one way I found was to get this sheetrock tape that we spoke about earlier, that for the bay window. Well, you can use that sheetrock tape to make a band to go around the drapery panels. And you just cut yourself a length off, or you can tear it if you tear it square enough. And then you just fish it around the drapery panels, not too tight, but tight enough. And then you just put a staple down that, and then one on the bottom side. And then just dress those folds up so they look consistent. And then because it's 2 inches and it's got some stiffness already to it, it's not going to help or add any creases to the drapery panel. So that's a nice way to help put some little training bands on. Normally I'll put them about 6 or so inches off the floor, and then depending on the fabric and the goal that we're trying to, the look we're trying to achieve, it may space them about every 2 foot going up to whatever length. And I had this one workroom that actually had that band around the panels when they came out of her workroom. And she had like the finished length written on there, the customer's name, what room they were going into. So that is a great idea. You can write it on a marker, because you see on the backside it doesn't even bleed through because it's so kind of thick. It's almost like buckram, but only in a 2-inch thickness, width. So this stuff is great, and you can get like 75 yards of it, or 75 feet for like $1.68 or something like that. And of course, I purchased this stuff here at Home Depot as well.
Okay.
I hope Home Depot is listening, because maybe I get a sponsorship as well as Rowley. That'd be nice.
And Carlette said she hasn't used the tag gun because she's afraid clients will need to take off and reinstall. So she doesn't do that.
But they come off easily. Right. You can just give it a little jerk, or just a little snippers. And you're just saying the customer themselves and stuff.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she did say that was a good idea for the training of the panels too.
Yeah.
And you probably just have video stopped.
We're having some technical difficulties, if you can hear us, but that was nothing that I did.
Can you all hear? Is the video started back up again? I don't know why it stopped, but hopefully it has. Well, we are almost at the top of the hour anyway, so hopefully it's. Can you guys tell us, is it stopped? Move. Okay. No, can you see us now? Are we moving again? Yes. Okay. We're moving again. All right. I'm going to come back around here and ask if there's any more questions.
All right. Was there any questions, or stuff I shared with you tonight might prompt a question that you can send to us, and we could entertain that explanation for that in another series or another show. Or if it's something that's individual, then perhaps I can just respond via Facebook or text message or something like that.
Yeah. And thank you. Hey, Robin. Robin's here too. Robin Matthews.
Hey, Robin.
So, sorry, I just kind of popped in here because we're getting to the top of the hour, so we probably should, you know.
And she was worried I was going to run out of information. I still got a whole half the table full of stuff I could talk about.
Another time. Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and hope you enjoyed him talking about all his tools that he has here and his little tips. Hope you have found some of them helpful. If you're interested in learning more about installation, he will be teaching a class on blind chains and shutters here in Apex in August 10th through 12th. And you also have a professional installer training class, 101, October 20th through 21st. So for more details, you can visit his website at installwhatsnew.com, real simple. Or you can reach out to him through his Facebook page. But before we sign off, I just want to remind all of you that I also have a book club every Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. for all you people who love to read books. We are currently reviewing the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I put the link in here tonight on Facebook, and we have that 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time if you'd like to join us. We're going to start chapter 2 tomorrow. Seems like it's going to be a very interesting book. And I just want to remind everybody, next week is July 4th, so we will not be here, and we just figured everybody will be out, cooking hamburgers and hot dogs and eating potato salad and watching the fireworks and parade. So we will skip next week, but on the 11th, we will be back. And he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to ask Ken to quickly share his story on how he made the decision to quit his full-time job and become a full-time installer. Did you know that?
No, that's nice to know.
Well,
I'm going to have to practice.
Well, I'm going to ask you to do that because many of us and you have made similar decisions. And there's some folks out there, I've had some discussions with some folks in the last couple of weeks. And, some of you are still holding back. It's fear. Fear holds us back, or we're just not sure when we should take that leap and go full time. And it is pretty scary. And so if he can share his story, and in a later time I'll share mine, and we'll bring others in to share theirs too, because I think it just gives others an inspiration, a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of encouragement on how others have taken the leap to start their own business. But also next week, in 2 weeks, we will have another segment of Living the Dream. And our special guest will be a woman called Christy Proctor. And she was a designer on the hit TV program Trading Spaces. And she is a go-getter. She's a very lively lady. And she now owns a retail store in Waco, Texas. And she also has this gorgeous bedding line called Moon Rain. And she's agreed to come on the show and tell us her story. So it should be very interesting to hear what she has to say. So that's about it. I think we are just really at the top of the hour. And let me just answer a couple questions if you want to say
sure.
Thank you. And yes, and let's see. Hang on, let me go back here. And okay, they said no delay. And Ken, Bill said it was a great show. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Bill. He's one of my favorite cheerleaders.
And Robin said, hi, I always learn something from you.
I appreciate that. And that was my goal as well.
And Ruth said, good job. And good job tonight, Ruth said.
Thank you, Ruth.
And Carlette said, thank you. And okay, good to know, Bill, that the video wasn't stopping. A little bit worried about that. And Kim said, great information, and thank you so much. And yes, Deborah, it is recorded. She had to multitask. That's great. Yeah, it is recorded and it will stay on here. And then I strip them down and put them on my website, Live with Sandra V. So if you don't find it here, you'll find it there and easy to get to. So we are at the top of the hour. And again, thank you, everyone. Again, ask questions, put them out there, and Ken will be answering them. And, you know, until next time.
Thank you very much.
And get your tape on.
And get your tape on. Just like I got.
Get your tape on. Okay, everyone. Have a safe and happy 4th. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that's a wrap. You did a great job. Thanks, everyone. Definitely.
Oh.
No, I was. And everyone say anything. I hope you liked the video. And be sure to follow me on social media. Here, here, and here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified whenever I post my next video.